Hello, facilitators, and welcome to Love at the Center UU Values and Covenants. This preview will provide an overview of the program for you as a facilitator and share a bit about your role as someone who is going to be creating a sacred opportunity for yourself and others in the program. My name is Linnea Nelson, and I'm the Executive Director of UU Wellspring, and I am delighted to bring you this program. Love at the Center is a core foundation for spiritual deepening. Much like our Sources program, it is a first program to take in the series of UU Wellspring year-long programs. It is meant for small groups of around 10 people, and it is 13 sessions long. You may find that our other year-long programs are a bit longer and you need to get started right away in September in order to finish them by General Assembly in June. This program, you can wait and start in October. And in fact, in 2024, we're asking you to start in October, as this will be our first year of the program. It gives you September in your church year to go ahead and gather people and let them know what's happening. There is an in-depth exploration of our shared faith in this program. We will be looking at the values and the covenants very carefully, but we'll do it within the context of our personal identities, our experiences. We'll be looking at the diverse communities we all are a part of, and we will work to strengthen our relationship with the world. Love at the Center has 5 areas that we have grouped the values. We begin and end with love. We start with grounding in love, and the last session is transforming in love. The other sessions are clustered with centering in community, acting in faith, and nurturing growth. As a facilitator, you are creating a spacious opportunity. When you think of how seldom we have spaciousness in our lives, this is one of the things that you can do as a facilitator, is to provide and create that space. One way to do this is to enter the space that you'll be in, whether it's online or in person, early, perhaps even 30 minutes early if you're meeting in person. That gives you time to feel organized, make sure the room is ready, and do some centering of your own before the first person comes to the session. You will be providing a space that allows for deep sharing. And we will be reviewing how to do this in the session when we're all together. We will be learning how to honor one another and what we have to share. We will be learning how to include one another and how to respect one another. Much of this falls under deep listening, but that is such an important part of UU Wellspring that we will be spending some time on that in our first session, as you will be in your first session with your participants. I want to get a little more involved in the calendar so that you know what to expect for the year. So I mentioned we will start with love, so grounding in love. And the first thing that we will do is we will center in love. That will be the first session that you will facilitate with your participants. We will explore love through the acronym CARES, and I'm going to go through that in just a few moments. Session 2 is creating bonds. This is where we create our covenant. Please notice sessions 3 and 4 are both on the value love. The first session, session 3, we will look at valuing love, and we call that Love is Powerful. Session 4 will take the covenant statement that is paired with love, and we will explore that, and that one's called Living Shared Values. You'll see that pattern again when we get to centering in community. Interdependence and pluralism will be explored as values. And then in session 6, we will explore the covenant statements that are paired with interdependence and pluralism. You'll see that again in Acting in Faith, but this time there are 4 sessions in Acting in Faith. The first 2 are paired around justice and generosity. The second 2 are paired around peace and reason. Then we move to nurturing growth. And this is where we will explore equity and transformation. And we will also look at the paired covenant statements for equity and transformation. Finally, we're at session 13, where we are returning to love. And we feel that this is a wonderful place to explore how each person feels they've transformed during the program and to have some celebration and reflection on their experiences. Like in all UU Wellspring programs, we provide a very detailed participant email to the facilitators. In that email, you will take a look at the value or covenant that's under consideration that will be clearly stated. There will be resources. It might be links to sermons and videos and readings, poetry, music, all kinds of things. And then there will be reflection questions, some of which are specific and some of which are more general in nature. We ask that you, as a facilitator, do the same preparation as your participants, that you engage with all of the resources, and you also journal your answers to the reflection questions. You will find that as the facilitator, you maybe won't take as much time in the group to share what you're thinking. We want you to participate, but we also know that you have to limit how much time that you spend as a facilitator speaking to give more space to everyone else. You'll notice that in the participant email for the covenant section, we're going to be sharing experiences and storytelling prompts. So folks will know what it is we're going to be doing in the session. Sometimes you may find some history questions if there is a resource that is tied to the history of this value, and spiritual practices will always be a part of UU Wellspring. We're also adding optional resources. We find that many people who finish a session, it's just opened up a whole new world. And if people want to continue their exploration, we want to provide some resources that will be optional and not the ones that are discussed in the session. We ask that you open this participant email, copy it, put it into your own email browser, and then create a group for your cohort so that you don't have to type in the names every time into the email. It is just too easy to forget one person, and then they won't be prepared or they might not know your meeting. So it's very important that you create some kind of group so you can make sure everyone's aware of what the next session is. I also like to give the tip of creating the email for the next program before you lead it. So for example, if I just led session 3, before I go to the session, I will create the email for session 4. I'll have it open on my computer. I'll have it ready to go. And if someone adds perhaps a reading or they want to share a book title, I will put that into the email and I will send it out right after the session. As you remember, perhaps if you've been a participant, sometimes you just get so involved and excited in the actual theme and for here the values and covenants that you may want to get started on the next one right away. So that's one of my favorite tips. I'll give you one more tip and around the email, and that is decide how you want the subject line to read and try to stay consistent. So perhaps you say UUW and the date. And that way, when people are looking for the email a week later, they'll be able to easily search for it. I mentioned there are 2 kinds of sessions. The first is a value session, and this is where we look at the actual values and we give our own personal reflections and we reflect on Unitarian Universalism. We'll be asking questions, something like, how does this value show up in your life? And how does it show up in your Unitarian Universalist communities? Note that the next question in former UU Wellspring programs or other programs, we usually ask at the end, we say, so what? And what we're going to do here is we're going to embed those so what questions right into the program of reflections itself. So for example, we might ask, what do you What are you going to do based on the reflection from today? What do you believe? What do you change? So we're going to ask you to journal about that as you are journaling about the other questions, so that when you get to the session, you've already started on that transformation. You'll find there might be some questions about history too, when there are resources that we feel are important to explore with this value. The second kind of session is a covenant session. And here it's very exciting because we really want to take it to this stage of embodying this exploration of our covenantal faith. So there will be resources and reflection questions, but they will be more brief because we are going to focus on experiences and storytelling in the covenant sections. So the experiences are often going to help us shift culture, and the reflection questions are going to help us understand systemic change a little bit better. And storytelling is going to be sharing our own lives with one another. And I will say one of the surprises is that often when we're telling a story about ourselves or something we've been involved in, we learn something new about it each time. We will give the prompts for the experiences and storytelling ahead of time. We do ask that you journal your own storytelling so that you can get to the essence of it. There won't be time to share long stories in each session, but there will be time, and it will be encouraged to share a brief anecdote and the essence of the story in the session. What we hope for this is that instead of one long spiritual journey, which you've already done in sources, or you will do when you take sources, we want to have this opportunity to take a look at different aspects of our lives and share them with one another in smaller segments so that we can engage with them with one another. Of course, spiritual practices, and these will land in the covenant sessions as well. Now, for facilitators, you will go to our website, uuwellspring.org, and you will log in by going to Facilitator Login in the menu and choosing Love at the center. Then you will put your password in. And if you're thinking, password, where do I get the password? The way you get the password is you sign up as a facilitator, you register. And that link can be provided to you by your congregational coordinator, or you can contact me. And it's also actually on our website. You will fill that registration form out. Please only put in one program that you are facilitating. If you're facilitating more than one, we do ask you to fill out more than one registration because they're tied to the password for that particular program. So once you have filled out the facilitator registration, you'll get the password as well as other information about how to access the materials, kind of a review of how to get online. And then you will type them in. Notice that there are some little gray dots there already. Ignore those. You will type right over them. The password is not already there. So then you will submit it. When you submit the password, then you will be brought to the sessions. And you'll notice that the arrow is pointing to session 1 because the first session is facilitation as a sacred opportunity. That's the session that UU Wellspring will lead, but you are always welcome to take a look at it and see what we're going to be doing. That is perfectly fine. But when you choose the session you're in, for example, session 1 for the first session, it will open and it will first have the email that you will cut and paste and send to your participants. Make sure you always read through it carefully because there are places where you can insert your own calendar, your Zoom link, your room number, other information that is unique to your particular group. Then at the bottom of this same link, you will find a guide for you as a facilitator of how to facilitate the session. In that guide, you're going to find that the words that are typed into the program are things that you can actually read to your participants. And you can read them straight out, but our guess is that you will probably read them and paraphrase them. That's what we hope you feel comfortable enough to do. So the facilitator tips is going to be a blue line, and notice that little arrow. When you click on it, it becomes a down arrow, and you will have tips about that part of the session that will pop open for you. We ask you to read those throughout. They change with the actual activities. And we think that these will be helpful for you. And yet they're things that won't get in the way of reading or paraphrasing the words that you want to use with your participants. We are using a CARES acronym. C is for community, and this will be familiar to those of you who've been in Wellspring before. It is an opening reading. It has music and meditation, which can be silent. And then there's a check-in. And this time the check-in is going to be a more specific question that is tied to some of the exploration of the value or the covenant statement in this session that's coming up. So that is one small change. We don't have a general question for check-in. We have a more specific one. The A in CARES is for agreements, and this is our covenant. And we know that there's some wisdom around waiting until you've been together at least once to write your covenant when you're going to be together for an extended period of time. So we're going to work on covenant in session 2, but know that there's a part of session 1 around identity that will be brought into this understanding of covenant and writing of our covenant in session 2. Our goal will be inclusivity, and that's why we feel it's important to look at our identities and share openly about what we need from this group. The R is for reflections, and these are our questions, and we will have an opportunity to share our responses, usually not to all the questions. So that's why it's also important for you and all the participants to spend some time journaling to each of the questions, because all of them will provide new ways of looking at your spiritual life and bringing you from your head to your heart. But we won't have time to explore all of the questions in depth. As a facilitator, you may find that you get to one question sometimes. It has brought such a need for the group to really explore it deeply. As the facilitator, when you bring a question forward in the group, you will be asking for deep listening, which we will explore in our first session. So your participants will explore in their first session and be familiar with what the group is going to commit to as far as deep listening and honoring silence. When you ask your question, if you feel that everyone needs a second go round to respond to it, it will take longer. If you find that, everyone gives their response and they're ready to move on, then you can choose another question. You don't have to go in order, and you don't have to do all of them. I just can't reiterate that enough, because that gives the spaciousness of the group. So you as a facilitator can create this sacred opportunity because you are really listening to your group and you are thinking about what their needs are as a whole. And that's how you will choose the questions to ask. The E is for experiences. And as I mentioned before, this is a newer part of the program. There are both pre-session and in-session experiences. And these might be something that we ask you all to do before the session starts, or it might be something that we do in the session together. Our goal is to have a broad range of the senses used, and so that we feel that we are embodying whatever the value and the covenant statement are asking of us. The S is for storytelling. Storytelling is going to be more anecdotal telling. You might write a whole story in your journal in response to the prompt, but when it comes to the session, we are going to be asking you to focus on the essence of your story. So what was the learning? What is it you want to share? Knowing that you'll add some details about the story, but you won't be able to give the whole thing. We want to have the opportunity to reflect individually on each person's story and see how that adds to perhaps our own story. Also part of storytelling is affirmations and our closing words. We're excited about our 3 books, Beyond Welcome, Faithful Practices, and Sacred Nature. All of these are currently available from the UU bookstore, and also online retailers and as ebooks. Sacred Nature is often available in libraries as well. You may find that if you have a fund for your adult programs or some discretionary fund, sometimes you can buy these in bulk and offer them to your participants. Your participants and you will hopefully be engaging in spiritual direction, and so you may want them to spend any funds that they have on spiritual direction, or they may have a spiritual friend, and then there's no cost to that. But we'll talk about that far more in the sessions themselves. We really appreciate the feedback that you give us. We ask that you put the feedback at the end of a session. There's a submit a comment area. This comment only goes to UU Wellspring. It is not printed on the website. It is a place for you to put in anything from, we had a great session and somebody brought in a poem by some particular person. We thought you might want to consider it for future UU Wellspring programs, or for this particular session to add to it. You can tell us that it didn't go well, some part of it didn't work for you. That would be helpful to us. You can also tell us maybe there's some theological piece that you want to go deeper in, or there's a broken link or a typo. Really, it is the place to tell us anything, any kind of feedback that you can give us. I will be back in touch with you, sometimes not right away, because sometimes we have to consider the comment, decide how we can handle it. Sometimes it's a comment that I want to bring to the next UU Wellspring board meeting, and it's lifting up some larger consideration. Please be in contact with me, director@uuwellspring.org, or go to the uuwellspring.org website. Check out the Facilitators Toolkit, because you will find that there are many resources there for you. I look forward to seeing you in the facilitation as a sacred opportunity session, where we will be really delving into this program. Thank you.